Binance CEO CZ says that Binance US could go public within 3 years. So the information reported the story, and they said that the CEO said Binance US is just going to do what Coinbase did. So the timeline he revealed during the interview was dependent on market factors. This despite CZ's statements from earlier this year that said the company had no plans to go public. So the news comes amongst global crackdown. We've been talking a lot about the global regulatory crackdown on this show, and the latest being the Monetary Authority of Singapore that's just added the exchange to its investor alert list. So Zach, I'm going to kick this off to you. Does this feel strange to you that CZ is saying IPO within the next 3 years, given all of the stories that we've heard about Binance this year and him saying that they weren't going to go public earlier this year?
I have many thoughts on this one. First of all, 3 years, come on. You could predict anything in 3 years. No one's going to hold this projection to account. 3 years, come on now. All right, first of all, that's my first beef. Second of all, when Binance US happened, Binance went to great lengths to portray these two entities as separate, right? Binance US is licensing Binance's technology and operating independently in the United States to serve US customers. Why is CZ on this campaign to say stuff about Binance US now? I just don't understand it, especially at this point in time. It doesn't seem like he's doing any favors for the Binance US brand. So those are like my initial just like head scratcher takes on this whole thing. I think a lot of crypto companies are going to go public in the next 3 years. I don't think that's that's like a bold statement at this point in time. But it just seems weird like that Binance CEO CZ is speaking for Binance US in this instance. And I don't know if that's sort of just like brand confusion in the market when it comes to the mainstream press, or some concerted effort on the part of Binance to now confuse these two things as one. I really can't tell what's going on here, but I'll toss it to Naomi. Really interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I wonder if it has something to do with the major investors that pulled out recently that sort of, led to Brian Brooks leaving. This article, I think it was the New York Times, came out kind of digging into that. And so I wonder, like, because they didn't secure that investment, whether, maybe people are thinking, well, an IPO isn't on the horizon, so we're not going to make our money back. And so we don't want to invest in this. And so now he's coming out and saying like, actually, there's definitely going to be an IPO, guys. And I wonder whether that's kind of like a fundraising tactic there, but I'm not quite sure. And also, regarding like the people leaving Binance US and what we were talking about before with Giancarlo, like it is just interesting because you wonder what's going on behind the scenes with CZ kind of keeping the reins. And I think that's just such a good point you mentioned, Zach. That really does seem to be what's happening. Brian Brooks also went out of his way to assert that Binance US was completely different. He was even talking about name changes. People were asking him, you going to change the name? He's like, probably not, because Binance brand's pretty good, but it's not outside the realm of possibilities. We are our own thing. And then suddenly, he's CZ's like, I'm making decisions for all of the Binances. So it's just like this very interesting dynamic going on. I feel really bad for companies like Binance because they went out of their way to be jurisdictionless, to have this very, global presence. And then now they're going to be forced into this box where they have to comply in every single jurisdiction and have a headquarters, whether they need one or not. And it completely changes their business model. If they started Binance because they did want people to have free access to these financial tools, regardless of where they are, this very open ecosystem. And now they're like, oh, okay, we can't be an open ecosystem. We have to be, completely regulated, completely surveilled, completely monitored and tracked. It might completely go against the ethos of a lot of these founding people who started out in crypto very early and were very much about breaking down those barriers, not erecting them. So I wonder whether there's some sort of like conflict there that maybe these businesses just won't be able to operate in a deregulated environment. There'll be too much friction, too much pushback from these original founders. If that's the case, I really do hope that Binance starts exploring that truly decentralized model. But I think I saw your hand go up, Will. Did I see that?
Yes. I just want to confirm Zach's very journalistic complaint here that there has been a huge push by Binance US to limit the marketing between Binance and Binance US. And they were always on top of, hey, we're licensing this software from Binance. We're a different entity. But then over the last few months, you just have so many proclamations from Binance itself about Binance US. And it's very confusing. And like on a marketing front, that's just one thing. But the question becomes, do regulators notice that as well? And do they start caring and saying like, hey, maybe this is a little bit different than they're purporting it to be? That's my only 2 cents. I thought that was a good acknowledgement by Zach.